my friend, Mr. John Ouano. Long time, long time. So awesome to have you up here, man. Thanks so much for.
I'm happy to be here.
I was like, oh, we gotta do a podcast.
I know. I think the first time I met you was you used to travel quite a bit when you were competing. So you used to come to California quite often. Mm-hmm. So it's like, who's this guy from New Mexico?
It's crazy, huh? The time flies.
The rest is history, man. I remember I enjoyed watching you compete. Just submission after submission.
I competed a lot.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu and then MMA, right?
That was, yeah. It's crazy times, but eventually we all get old.
And then for me, like the first time I saw your name was the gloves, Ouano gloves, that made the gloves for the UFC,
right? And
made the gloves for King of the Cage.
King of the Cage. I made gloves for Pride, WEC. That was quite a Shuto. I did Shuto North America for many years. One of my friends is a promoter up in Chicago. He's an ER doctor, Eric Moon, and they use the Shuto gloves. So his partner at that time had, I guess, the rights to the North American Shudo Association. So I had the rights to produce the gloves for many, many, many years. That was a lot of fun.
How did you get into glove making? How did that niche?
I started. It all started with gis. Back in the early 90s, it was very difficult to find gis. I mean, you know that.
Yeah.
You would have to know someone from Brazil. They'd bring it over. It'd cost you like $250 for a gi, and they shrunk a lot. And I figured, you know what, this is ridiculous. There's got to be a way, because you're in the mercy of whoever comes from Brazil. If you don't know anyone, then someone's going to make money off of you, for sure.
Yeah.
Took a few years of research and development. I went to a lot of trade shows. It all started with cutting a judo gi. I would chop the sleeves. And it's like, okay, but the body was still baggy. And eventually, trial and error, using different factories, I found a factory that was willing to work with me. And I officially started the business in 1999, but I had done my research and development for at least 2-3 years before. And I was fortunate enough. I was fortunate enough that when I started all this, I had a lot of black belt friends from Brazil. So Rodrigo Medeiros was my model. I traveled quite a bit. So Marcelo Alonso is an old friend of mine, and Carlson Sr. and Jr. were going. It was
the Tatami magazine.
Yeah, right? So they were going. Oh, no, not him. No, Marcelo Alonso from Carlson Gracie from Seattle.
Seattle.
He was a head coach of the Carlson Gracie team for like 6-7 years in Brazil before moving to Seattle. So Carlson Sr. and Jr. went to Seattle. Marcelo, hey, you want to come up here? I said, sure. So I went up. I brought a bunch of gis. So I told, I said, put these on. We'll take pictures. And sure enough, I was just at the right place at the right time, like many individuals in the business.
And were there online stores at that time?
Oh no, it was you had to call, and it's word of mouth.
Your trunk.
Yeah, I
tournaments.
I advertised. I can't remember. It was a judo magazine. He was a judo black belt from Japan that had a magazine, like a newspaper type, like a LA Weekly type magazine. I advertised in that. And then mostly word of mouth. Talked about it all the time. And one day I decided, well, this was like the UFC had just, like, there was a big pause. There was like a few years of pause because the Athletic Commission banned MMA.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah, of course.
It was like 3-4 years, right? There was no MMA.
It was off of pay-per-view.
Yeah. It was.
And they were having them in like Mississippi.
Yeah.
And
So
places
so
like
I was
that.
like, you know what? I'm gonna maybe play around with, like, come up with a bag glove. So everyone was using the, what is that called, the harbinger or harbinger or whatever. It was like really like everybody was. It had like a little
bars,
yeah,
like a weightlifting kind of. It was weird, yeah.
something like that. So I got a hold of one, and I started gutting it. I just gutted it. Remove this. We don't need this. We don't need the thumb. So I was working on the prototype, and brought in some samples, and that this was the time when Zuffa bought UFC. So this was in like 2001, and the Fertittas told Big John, "Hey, look, your job now is to see if we can find an official glove company for the UFC." So I was one of the first few that he called. Funny thing is, Big John was in the LAPD, and one of his former partners was a friend of mine. It's like, how weird is that, right?
Yeah.
So he kind of knew of me, heard of me, and he called and left me a message, and he said, "Oh, my name's Big John, blah blah blah," and I was like, at first I was like, well, I mean, what, how bad can it get, right? So I gave him a call. We went back and forth, and finally, when we got in touch with each other, I told him, this is what I'm doing right now. I explained to him in detail what I'm working on, what I'm planning on bringing in. And then he goes, all right, it's pretty much what we're looking for. And he sent me a fax of something that he had sketched, and I said, that's what I'm bringing in. So he said, well, here's the thing. This was like late, like I think the first UFC that used the gloves that I produced for them was Lock and Loaded in Atlantic City. I think it was UFC 30. Yeah, UFC 31. It was in, I want to say 2001, I believe. So I had been working on this since about January, February. And then Big John goes, "Oh, hey, man, I just want to let you know that you're not the only one we've approached." Said we've approached just about every glove company in the United States. So, you won't be alone, but we want to give you the opportunity. But I like your enthusiasm, because of all the people that I called, you're the only one that actually said, "Oh, I'm going to run with this. I have nothing to lose." And I kept talking to him throughout the entire process. And finally, I had a sample, and he goes, "Okay, cool." He said, better yet, I will one-up everyone else. Send me the UFC logo, and I'll put it on the gloves.
Take action.
So he goes, very smart. So he sent me the logos, and I had it woven on the strap. And then he goes, "Well, guess what, Johnny? We need this for a May show." I'm like, "Oh, crap." He's like, "Yeah, we want everyone to wear it as the official gloves." So one thing led to another. I said, "All right, I'm going to do everything I can." So I was able to deliver the gloves. Not only did I just send him one pair, I sent him several pairs, probably 5 or 6 pairs. And every single glove I sent to Atlantic City overnight had the UFC name. So from what he told me, there were about 12 or more than a dozen glove companies that submitted their gloves. Some very big names. And he said, "But I really like what you've done, and I'm definitely going to push for you because of what, you made that effort to go the extra mile, while everyone else just sent us whatever they had, whatever, right?" So they approved, I don't know exactly how many, but they approved a handful of gloves out of the dozen or so that submitted gloves. However, he pushed for the ones that I designed because it was unique compared to what everyone else sent them. So this happened during a weekday, and he goes, "Johnny, I'm going to give you a call as soon as I find out." So at that time, I had 2 jobs, trying to maintain my business and trying to make a living. think I remember very well, like around noon our time, which was 3 o'clock Eastern time. He goes, Johnny, you're in. And I'm like, what? He goes, Johnny, you're in. You are the official gloves of the UFC. And, the Fertitas want to meet you. I said, okay, cool. And then I think after the event, then I received a call from the secretary of Lorenzo and Frank. My name is so-and-so, from the Station Casinos. I'm the personal assistant of, the Fertitas. And they will be in LA at this hotel, and they would like to meet you. And I was like, okay, what day? So it gave me a date and a time. Hung up. I got really anxious, and I was excited at the same time. And I called Big John and said, hey, your boss coming to town. Tell me more about your bosses, your new bosses. He goes, I think he was either Frank. Yeah, I think Frank's the one that trained under John Lewis, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. He goes, oh, yeah, he takes privates with John Lewis and all that kind of stuff. So, okay, good enough. So what I did was when I met them at the hotel, Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills. I remember that. And I brought, back then, the heavy-duty gis, the double weaves were, the in thing, right? You had to have a double weave gi. So I brought a bunch of gis, carried it. Dana White met me at the front, and he goes,
when he still had hair, right?
Yeah, when he goes, smart man. And then we went and met at the restaurant. The whole meeting took less than 15 minutes.
15?
Less than 15.
Wow.
It was wham bam, thank you, ma'am. So when I walked in, I said, I understand you train. These are for you. He pointed at me and goes, smart man. And then we sat down, and they proceeded to talk and say, hey, we don't want to do this for money. We're not in the business of making gloves, but we do just want to make sure that we have a consistent number of gloves for each and every show. And other than that, you can do whatever you want. You can make as much money as you want. And welcome to the UFC. And we appreciate you. If you need anything,
welcome to the UFC.
Yeah. And it said, cool. if you need anything, let us know. And at that time, I've already seen quite a few MMA shows. So I was kind of like, it's okay, no big deal. So that was that. Shook hands, and they said, welcome to the UFC, and we look forward to working with you. And we had a good relationship for about 8 years. And I think of all the 8 years that we worked together, I've probably been to like maybe 4 or 5 UFCs. I didn't really like to travel too much to Vegas and all that stuff, because I spent a lot of time going to King of the Cage, because at that time they were doing a lot of fights at Saboba. So a lot of my guys fought. So
like Rodrigo Medeiros, guys like
Javi, all those guys from
the Millennia
guys, Gabe, all those guys. So almost every month I was at Saboba, and then once the UFC made it official, I was their glove manufacturer. Shortly thereafter, Terry called me and said, what do I need to do? And I said, nothing. He's like, so King of the Cage still uses my gloves. As a matter of fact, I just shipped a few hundred gloves to Terry in the last couple months. So, and Terry and I have been friends ever since.
So interesting, because I remember getting the King of the Cage gloves, because I was going to fight in the King of the Cage in what was it, like 2002?
Yeah, right.
And before that, it was the Harbinger
gloves. So then everyone became...
And then there was, first it was Valetudo, no gloves. Right. And then they had like that little glove with the cross on it.
Right.
That was super thin.
Yeah, they looked like the Swiss...
right, it was like, but it was super, they sucked, There was like foam.
And it was gel.
It was gel,
It was gel, and
didn't protect the hands at all.
And most athletic commissions ban those. They ban the gel gloves, because what happens is when your hands get really soaking wet, and it shifts side to side, so you have a high risk of injuring yourself. Breaking a wrist, breaking a hand.
I mean, they were like paper thin.
Oh,
gel was nothing.
and
nothing.
and gel was heavy.
Yeah.
It was practically more than twice the weight of the neoprene gloves, and they didn't care.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, the Harbinger gloves, and I remember we used to fight with those, you know, and then
You had to remove the bars, right?
you had to remove the bars, you had to cut it out, and you know, people would borrow gloves for the events. They would, you know, shift them around because there
Right.
weren't enough gloves.
Right. Yeah. Then I came along. Then
Then
everyone
you came along.
Then
That was the
everyone had
difference.
gloves.
Yeah, that was it. That was pretty
Yeah,
much it. You know, once you started to put those out, and I was like, oh wow,
Yeah.
look at this glove, and then you could actually train with it.
Yeah,
and it felt good. You could grapple with it.
Right. Yeah. Since you know, those were some great years with the UFC. I feel like it was good for everyone. Everyone was happy. I must have sold thousands and thousands of gloves in 8 years. Yeah. The only problem that I regretted was I didn't trademark it.
Trademark the.
The everything.
Oh.
Yeah, Big John and I have a conversation about this. And
The
he
IP, protecting the IP,
yeah,
because
so-
it was huge.
Yeah, it's like it was John.
You're the first one to come up
Yeah,
with
so-
like the right one,
yeah,
and
so-
then marketing that, right?
Yeah, so Big John was like, Johnny, I'm sorry, but you know, I mean, yeah, it's part of history.
Yeah, yeah, well, for sure. I mean, like I was in that early history, so I'm like, dude, Ouano, you know, John Ouano. When I remember first talking to him, oh, John Ouano, wow, because you see the Ouano,
Right.
you know, on the gloves, and
Right. It all started with gis.
started with geese.
All started with gis. You know, I remember packing gis early in the morning, juggling my day job with the business.
What was your day job?
I worked for a publishing company. I managed the freight, so I did that for like almost 12 years, and eventually I decided, you know, I'm gonna do jiu-jitsu full time. So that's when I started New Breed with Johnny Ramirez. So we did New Breed together, and then I
You guys started the New Breed together.
yeah. So Rodrigo and I were still in La Habra, but he had already spent most of his time in San Diego. So I taught most of the classes in La Habra, and it's like, hey, you know what? I've been driving from the valley all the way to La Habra for like 4 or 5 years, like 3-4 days a week.
You lived in the San Fernando Valley?
No, I lived in West LA. I've been living in the same apartment all this time. Drove all the way.
No way.
Yep, I drove a lot. Didn't complain. I did it because I really love what I do and I believed in what I did. So,
Yeah.
you know, to be honest with you, I did not start making money teaching jiu-jitsu until I started Tsunami. I did jiu-jitsu for free because I liked it.
Yeah.
And since I started Tsunami Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, I use it as a tool, you know, to make a living and promote the business. And I've been fortunate enough that I have a pretty good sized team. You probably know Colton Smith. Colton's been with me probably the last 4 years. You know, he won the Ultimate Fighter like 7 years ago. Gabe's been with me since he started Kaiju, which many years. So I'm nobody. I'm just a guy that trains jiu-jitsu, didn't like to compete, but loved teaching with passion, learning and traveling and sharing the skills. And fortunate enough that I know many big names that, you know, has helped me grow as an individual, as a martial artist. And to this day, you know, I have a good network of, you know, high level friends that I can call and say, hey, can you help me with this? And I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu is once you have a good network, you know, it's not about who you know now, it's who you know long term. You know, we hear people say, oh, I know this guy, I know that guy, you know, this guy's really famous, I know him.
Know him.
But in my case, you know, I when people ask me, do you know this person, I always go back and say, yeah, we've been friends the last 25, 30 years. And I can pick up the phone and he'll call me back. But there are no strings attached to our friendship. So that's the beauty with what I do and what I create. I don't, you know, I don't make a whole lot of money teaching jiu-jitsu. I do okay. I just love doing what I do.
Yeah.
It affords me to travel. You know,
You're about to go to New Zealand, right?
yeah, I'm leaving next Wednesday for New Zealand. I was just in Australia in July. I have 4 affiliate schools in Perth, Australia, and one MMA school there. And in New Zealand, there's about 12, 13 schools, one MMA. You know, one of our black belts there is a pioneer of mixed martial arts in New Zealand. Anyone that has come out of New Zealand has gone through his camp out of Christchurch. You know, Carl Weber has been around for a very long time. He's a big name. He's trained many of the coaches across New Zealand, and I'm very grateful that he's part of my team. I'm like I said, I'm nobody.
Awesome.
He appreciates what I have to offer. So
you're always just so friendly and always helpful to help out all. Like, I was we're all younger, but I was a young kid, and you're always super helpful, and we're always supportive, and those are the things that you never forget when you meet people, right?
Right. Well, that's I think having friends and knowing people are like 2 different things. To me, having friends is long term. When I tell someone, or when I tell people I know, it's like, hey, this is my friend, so and so. I've known him for the last 25 years. We may have lost track the last 5, but I can pick up the phone and we can have a conversation like it was yesterday. So, that's the beauty with my type of personality is I attract certain individuals that, we really hit it off, and there are no strings attached, and it's not for everybody. I always tell my students, say, look, there are going to be students for every teacher, and there are always going to be a teacher for every student. So there are teachers that cater to specific personalities. I cater to specific personalities. I don't know what really that means as far as what type of personality.
Different folks with different strokes, right?
Right. Yeah. But I'm blessed that I have a lot of friends from all teams.
You're a legend in jiu-jitsu. Okay, as an American and who's been here since especially in the competition scene at jiu-jitsu and MMA, you were always there for us. You're always there for, all my interactions with you, and those are those things you remember when you were younger, right?
Right.
Like those memories, and so
we appreciate the little things in life.
Yeah,
and I do give back a lot to the community. I work with, law enforcement, military, having a few black belts in my team, either current or retired military. I spend a lot of time with them. I go out east. I spend it with Colton. He's active duty, and at his gym, it's called Enlisted 9 Fight Company. Half of them are, I think, either in the military or half retired. Most of them have served or are serving, and it's a big gym. And Colton came over because of one of my black belts, name's Dave Keedish. He was in the Air Force for 25 years, but he was a special ops. So, he was in that tight-knit community. And since he's been retired, he's been teaching Halo Hi-Ho for the military. He does recertification for people that we appreciate. He and Colton been friends because of that network, and came over, and that's pretty much it. It's been at least almost 5 years now. And I remember when we first started out east, I would only go to Fort Belvoir. I think it's in Maryland, I believe. And I would teach there. So Dave would fly me. And as, me giving back, we'd drive an hour and a half. I'd teach 2-3 hours, mostly military and their dependents. And it went on every year. And then on the third year, they decided we're going to open our own gym. Pandemic happened. Before we know it, these guys have their own gyms and they're serving the community and giving back. So
That's it. That's what it's about, right?
yeah,
Giving back and helping people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through this amazing tool we have, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we use what we can. I mean, right now we have in Virginia, we have 3 academies and 2 affiliates. And it all started with one, slowly.
Yeah, yeah.
Same thing with Texas. Started with one, and it started growing. And I mean, like, I don't seek people; they come to me. John Jensen has been with me for many, many years, and I've known him for a very long time when he was training at Rodrigo's, and these guys just come over. Well, I want to be part of what you do because I believe in what you're doing, and your personality, and we get along and all that kind of stuff, and the network that you have. And it's like, well, okay. And they still stay. I mean, to this day, they're still around. This is our 10th year for the team, and we're just growing.
Looking at your shirt, 2013.
Yeah.
But you've been around since the beginning, pretty much, of MMA and Jiu-Jitsu.
Since the early 90s.
Where's Tsunami?
I used to teach in Culver City, but I no longer teach there, so I'm in the process of opening a new gym. So
Since the pandemic.
Yeah, it just started like in August. I'm no longer affiliated with the gym I was teaching, so
Okay.
I'm going to be looking for a place somewhere on the west side, and I have the support of my friends, my network of friends.
Yeah.
I've had many phone calls from individuals that have either trained under me or have been my friends for the last 20 some odd years. I said, Johnny, when you open, we will be there for you.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm very grateful, and I the last few months I've been spending a lot of time with Leo Vieira. So Leo came to America in the early 2000s. He didn't know anyone, and he needed a place for Braza to train.
That's crazy, right? That people don't even, a lot of people don't even know what Braza is.
No, back in the day, he was like, one of my friends came.
Because it was Master,
yeah,
right?
Master, and then Braza.
And then, was it Braza or was it Alliance?
No, it was Alliance, and then Master, and then Braza.
Alliance, Master, and then Braza.
Yeah.
And then
split.
Checkmat.
Yeah, Checkmat. Then you have
Prito Madero's. He's still Braza.
And then there's Atos. It's split. And then you have Zenith.
Robert Drysdale.
Right.
Yeah.
So all these guys that were from the same team trained at my gym for a couple of years. They did that. They were traveling from Brazil to LA. All the 3 big tournaments were in LA for many, many years. So they would come and spend 10 days. I would shut down my gym. I would give them the mat from noon to 4.
Wow.
I didn't ask for anything.
12 to 4?
Yeah, 12 to 4 hours. Yeah, 4 hours, like a few days a week. They did that before and they did after. I actually ended up hiring a couple of his black belts to work for me. And they're still my friends. And, I was his first sponsor in the United States.
Oh, so you brought him actually?
No. Oh. I when he came,
a sponsor yeah, that's right, Ouano. Yeah, that's right.
So I sponsored the entire Braza team when they competed at ADCC in New Jersey, where Drysdale won. I sponsored the entire team. It's just one thing led to another, and I was joking with Leo. A week ago, before he left for Singapore, I said, I was telling his students, like, we've been friends a long time, but he got really famous and he forgot about me. And then he goes, yeah, and I got really, really famous and I wanted to get back in touch with John. So I said, that's what happens. I tell my famous friends, you get to be very famous and you forget about your friends. He goes, no, bro, no, that's not like that. But, I'm really happy that, I'm very happy to see my friends succeed. I'm really happy for your success. I remember when you were still up in Santa Fe, you had your own team, and one day you decided to up and leave, and look at you now. You have a huge facility in Burbank.
It's crazy.
You produced a good number of competitors. Not only that, it's not so much about producing competitors, but producing good individuals out of your gym. It's you know,
Good humans. Good.
yeah, I mean, it's what have you done with life, right? And it's like it's easy to say I produced 10 world champs, right? But people will remember the ones that you trained well, that you taught to be good individuals. I mean, there has to be a balance, right?
Yeah.
Some people like to compete, some people don't. But let's face it, majority of the students, what do you think is the percentage of the competitors in your
it's
gym?
very small. Very small.
Less than 3%.
It's always like that, yeah. But you focus, you put all the energy into those guys.
Exactly.
And then that takes away from the other one, so it's not really
Exactly.
fair.
Right. And you're forgetting that 95% of them pay your bills, or 98% of them pay your bills.
And nobody's better than anybody, you know. We all benefit from training in jiu-jitsu and martial arts.
Absolutely.
I have our own interests, and it really helps us be our best.
There's
Whether
no
it's
secret.
competing to get a gold medal, or whether it's just being better at whatever you do. If you're an attorney, if you're a businessman, if you're whatever, a dad or mom, it's crazy.
And there's no secret really in jiu-jitsu, especially in today's age. You know, you have the internet. Someone sees something.
Yeah.
Before you remove your gi, the whole world knows about it because someone's posting it, right? Back in the day, people would say, "Oh, you're stealing techniques. You're stealing my livelihood."
Right. Wow.
That's not the truth now, man. I mean, how much do you really care?
For back in the day, that's how it was. Like, you can't show anybody, other people. You couldn't video. I mean, back in those days, it was recording the big VHS tapes, right, to get footage.
You have Scotty and Gumby.
Scotty and Gumby.
Videotaping and selling all the videos. I mean, God bless them.
And then there were the guy Paqueta in Brazil.
Absolutely.
You had to find him, track him down, and buy his VHS tapes out of his trunk.
Well, I lucked out because I spent a lot of time with Carlson Gracie Sr.
Right.
So he lived down the street from me when he was in LA. So I spent a lot of time at his apartment watching fight videos.
So tell me the whole Carlson Gracie, because there's pictures of you with Carlson Gracie, with Victor Belfort.
Yeah, well, I was at John Jacques for a little bit, and then when Carlson came to the United States with Vitor, one of my friends at that time was here in LA taking English lessons at UCLA. His name is Marcelo Hertz. He's a black belt, and he actually got his black belt eventually from Boulogne, and then and he's over at he's in Florida. He's with Carlson's brother. I'm drawing a blank.
So many brothers, right?
I'm drawing
Is
a blank.
that Helion?
Helion, you're right.
Helion, okay.
He runs the Helion Gracie in Doral. Helion's his brother-in-law, to make a long story short. But he's one of my oldest friends, and he was the one who, because I used to take him to John Jacques to train, because he was living in my neighborhood, and John Jacques was really kind enough for me to bring my friends over. And one day he goes, "Hey, my master is here." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, my master, Carlson Gracie Sr. is here. I want you to meet him. You like him. He's a good man. He's very famous." I'm like, back in the day, it was Hoist.
Right,
everything
right,
was Hoist, right? I didn't know much about Carlson. So I said, "Okay, all right. He lives by you." So I went to his apartment, and the rest is history. We hit it off really well. He had a very, very limited English, but he just had this huge persona. Like it's like you can't. I mean, you just want to love the guy. He's just amazing. He's really enthusiastic. Just a big heart. He gave.
Yeah.
And people loved him for that, and so I spent a lot of time.
He's
with
such
him.
a big part of just jiu-jitsu I mean, his energy,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
you were on his team or you were against his team, because I
Yeah.
came up with Gracie Baja, right? I was their first American black belt, and you know, he was brothers with Carlos Gracie Jr.
Yeah.
And we, you know, you trained to beat them. You
Yeah,
didn't want to get
right.
beat by them, and so he just caused this huge rivalry,
Right.
competition scene.
Right.
It was all because of Carlson.
In a
seems
good
like.
way.
Yeah, in a good way.
In a very good way.
For sure. It brought out the best in everybody. And, you know, the whole reason why we have jiu-jitsu tournaments is because of Carlson, right?
I mean, he
Supposedly,
did love to
from
fight.
what I hear, you know, he's the one who was like, no, we have to have competitions.
I mean, to show what you've learned, to show your talent, right? I mean,
There's a collaboration, of course, Carlos Gracie Jr., but Carlson was he's the, you know, probably didn't protect his IP or whatever. He didn't do all that business
No.
stuff. He wasn't a businessman.
No.
But his heart and his, the spirit, you know, it's really cool to see like the Ruka,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, represent his name. And just because he was such a big part of every part of jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
sports jiu-jitsu, and then, of course, MMA.
Absolutely.
Of his guys representing jiu-jitsu.
I am so grateful that I met him. Even more thankful that I got to know him as a person and I got to spend time with him. I remember when his friend Paquita would show up and give him boxes of VHS. And he'd say, "Oh, Jean Ouano, go to my apartment." And then,
Did you save any of those VHS
No, I
tapes?
wish.
Did you like
wish.
transfer them to DVD?
I wish. You know, one thing
Because there's
that-
so many lost matches.
So that's one of the things that I probably wish that I had the hindsight of like asking for maybe a couple. I mean, I've seen black and white videos from like I don't know what decade. Oh, my student. And you know, he'll show me videos of so many fights and he'll like just babble in Portuguese and I'm sitting there going, oh, but this is really fun.
Yeah.
Very entertaining. But what I'm grateful for is meeting just about everyone of who's who in the Carlson Gracie team that was able to travel to America to train with us in LA. To this day, I'm still really good friends with Liborio, Zamario. I mean, Rodrigo, you know, he's my little brother. We've been friends a long time.
Man, Liborio, what a guy.
Super.
Man, that guy's like.
He comes to LA. He calls me, and he was just in LA a few months ago, and I had dinner with him. You know, like we text each other quite a bit. He checks in on me. I check in on him.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool. I mean, with Zamario, when that hurricane hit Houston a few years back, I was supposed to teach a seminar at my affiliate there. And then they asked, hey, would you be interested in asking Zamario if you guys want to come? We'll pay for the trip and raise funds to donate to hurricane victims. So I called Zamario and said, hey, you want to do this? He goes, absolutely, let's do it. So we met in Houston, taught a seminar, raised enough money and donated to a charitable foundation, and we give back.
Yeah.
It's not all about making the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like Marcelo Alonso up in Seattle. I talk to him nearly every week. So I keep in touch with many of my old friends.
Yeah, I mean when I talk to old school on the podcast, I've had the blessing of being able to speak to Royce Gracie and like all these old school guys. I always ask them like, what's the biggest thing that jiu-jitsu has given you? And they pause, and they always say relationships.
Absolutely,
relationships. And so people that creanch and don't treat their teachers or the professors with respect, and don't do things the right, like how you want to be treated. Sometimes like you gotta do something else. It's all good, but treat them like you would want to be treated. Right. Just 'cause sometimes it's a hard talk, right?
Right.
But you gotta do the right thing.
Right. Well, the thing about jiu-jitsu is like life. You can never really tell when things go south. for whatever reason, it's how you say things or how they perceive you.
How you perceive you, right?
And then they assume, right? It happens to everyone, and I'm sure it happened to you. It's happened to me many, many times. But I think the most important lesson to learn here is that what do you do about it, right? So if Alberto, you've already made up your mind that, I'm not the person you thought I am, right? And I can never change your mind. So it's my job to figure out how can I make myself better so the next person won't assume, that I'm what Alberto was saying, right? We all make mistakes, and I think if we just find ways to make things better, I think that's all we can really do.
How we react, right, to do whatever situations.
Right.
For me, it always comes down to like, hey, listen, I just want the best for my students, and whatever's best for them, and
It's
if
respect.
it's best for you, like, cool. I mean, I'm here to serve you, and again, like speaking of egos and things, like just humble. I'm just like, I wish all the best. I'm here,
Right.
to serve. If I can help you with anything, let me know. And that changes kind of the thing, the situation, because it's at the end, right? Or when you're in those situations, it's about ego and your insecurities, and and then you being exposed, like I'm not good enough. Everybody has fears of being inadequate, right?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Insecurities.
All these tough guys, these jiu-jitsu fighter guys, but they're like, no, I'm saying like they're all like these tough guys, but like insecure, right? Because we're sensitive, the most sensitive guys.
They don't want to admit
sensitive
it.
people.
They don't want to admit it, and then you find out the hard way, and it's too late. Sometimes it's too late to retract things, right, or what you've said. It's life lessons.
Yeah,
man. It's
yeah.
life. I mean, you can't be perfect every day.
No, like we do our best, right? We do our best, and
that's all we can do.
And no matter what happens, like I'm grateful for no matter the good or the bad.
Absolutely.
Things work out, they don't work out. For the time I spent, with whoever, and just come always from. I just try to think of being humble,
right?
And I'm here to serve. It just really comes down to that. I'm here to help you, and I'm so blessed to be able to do what I do,
right?
Because we love jiu-jitsu, we love martial arts, we love it, and it's given so much to us, right?
Right.
And we want to share. That's all it came down to.
I mean, jiu-jitsu is such a small community.
It really is.
It's a small community. People will find out the truth faster than you can imagine. You say something, and then before you know it, someone has twisted it, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
I killed someone? No.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, it's crazy. But
it's all good.
If they don't learn from what we have, to do, like the skills and and the patience and all that stuff, then it's going to be a tough road.
Yeah. Man, how did you get into martial arts? I'm sure you watched Hoist Gracie, right? And that's your jiu-jitsu.
Right.
What are you from California?
No, I was actually born in the Philippines. I moved to Florida when I was a teenager. And
Where in the Philippines?
Cebu, in the
Cebu.
central part. Yeah.
Okay.
So most of my family are out east, and well, my mom's side are mostly out east. My dad's side's out west. So most of my siblings are in the Seattle area. I don't know why they like it up there.
Okay.
But I did stick fighting growing up.
Kali.
Yeah, we did.
Eskrima.
Yeah, real knives and no protection. You get smacked. We did that. And
You ever hear of the Dog Brothers?
yes, I actually have a couple of my black belts are dog brothers. So
Okay.
they're crazy.
So one of the founders, right, Arlen Sanford, was in New Mexico. Sanfes, who was one of my students. And
It's crazy.
I went to some of the gatherings, they called them, and they go into the park, and put basically hockey gloves.
Yeah, I think
Hockey gloves, yeah, and a fencing
Fencing
mask.
mask.
And then they just swing to the
Swing,
fences.
yes.
Some people
Elbows.
put different pads on and stuff, more pads or whatever. And Arlen Sanford wouldn't even wear gloves because he was so confident in his abilities.
Crazy.
And they would, knock each other out. They, it was crazy. I remember one time I went with him just to watch, and he's like, "Hey,
You mean you didn't jump in?
He asked me, "Hey, you gonna jump in?" I'm like, "What?" It's like, "What do I do?" He's like, "Just swing really big."
You're gonna laugh at this. Gabe Rudiger went to one in the last 2 months. So one of my black belts who teaches at Claremont, Claremont BJJ, is a dog brother. So he and Gabe have this twisted idea. They just love to fight. Gabe goes, "Hey, Mike, I want to do this. I want to go next time you go." Mike was like, "You sure about this?" Like, "Yeah, let's meet at a park and I can show you what to expect." So they two lessons. Then they went to the South Bay. This was in I think it was in, I want to say November. They went to the South Bay and Gabe goes, you go there, you size up everyone, you look at them in the eye and say, "You want to fight?" And it's like, okay, so then what happened? I had 5 fights, and it's like 2-3 minutes or something like that. So what happens is a stick and a knife. So there's a long line. So when you get to the front of the line, everything goes. He goes, "What happened?" So I submitted everyone. I killed the guy.
You took him down.
Yeah, I took him down and stabbed him. So what else do you do? It's like, well, you have to make sure that you don't get stabbed. So you take him down. You make sure you know where the knife is. They're not able to reach it, and you fight from there. And he goes, "I don't understand, because I swear to God, I kept shanking this guy on the side, and the referee just kind of stood there. And then one time I
Yeah, so I think we're talking about the Dog Brothers, right?
Right.
And the knife fighting. And
it's not fun, man. The thing is, people have this misconception of like, I have a weapon. I'm good at it. Well, but if you don't know what the other person is capable of doing, then you're gonna get nailed.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure you have the same issues with new people coming in. "I want to be a fighter. I want to know how to fight." I said, "Listen, before you learn how to fight, you've got to learn how to fall down, how to
Hip
do the
escape.
forward, all the exercises that we do. You have to learn before you learn how to fight,
Right.
because you can learn how to fight, but if someone knows how to take you down, you don't know how to fall. You break an arm, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get knocked out, you're done." I've had many people come to class like with that type of attitude.
Yeah.
And I said, "Listen, I've been doing this a long time, and this is what's going to happen. The more you train, the less you want to fight. That's just how
It's crazy how that works, right?
But people don't realize that. I mean, look at all these guys that are big names in fighting. They avoid fights.
Yeah. It's never worth it.
Learning how to fight helps you avoid fights, because the consequences are just insane. Oh, so a professional mixed martial artist beat up this guy because he didn't like what he said. That makes you look like a fool.
Yeah.
You're being dragged to prison
Yeah.
for your making certain calls, right?
Right.
It's a judgment call.
Right.
I mean, obviously, you have every right to protect yourself, but if it's just going to bruise your ego, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not going to help your cause.
It comes down to your being secure in yourself, right?
Oh, absolutely. I
And,
mean, and there's plenty of individuals in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that have a lot of insecurities.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you know a handful. I know a handful.
And we all have our insecurities, right? But it's like,
Oh, of course.
you
We
know,
all
it's
do.
like, just be humble.
Right, I
Just
mean,
be cool.
look,
It's not worth, being mean to somebody, or, treating somebody bad, or,
Yep.
because
I've
you're
learned to-
scared or
yeah.
something, right?
I've learned to just ignore certain individuals. And some individuals are really good at egging you
Right.
to
right,
be
right.
mad
Right.
so you can engage. That's not cool, because once you engage, now you're on. I just ignore them. I really have no time for individuals that want to criticize what I do. Whatever, man. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever you say to me will not change my life. It's not going to affect my life.
Yeah.
What's going to affect my life is if you do something to me, like physically, that's what's going to change. But you saying something, if you're a keyboard warrior a few hundred miles away, why do I care what you have to say?
Things changed, huh, with the internet and
Yeah.
forums
Oh my God.
and all these things,
I mean, crazy how people like there's so many armchair warriors out there.
Yeah.
And then when you call them out, they're like, they ghost you.
Back in the early days, like if you acted or said anything like that, nobody would even think about it.
Nope.
Saying something like that or give you any kind of like look. There was just total respect, right? Because it was you'd be checked pretty fast.
I mean, respect is very important.
Yeah.
And respect is earned.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't,
sure.
It's like friendship. It's a two-way street.
Right.
Respect is a two-way street. How can anyone respect you if you don't respect them?
Right.
So how can you be a friend if you're not even a friend?
Right. Like going back to the dog brother thing. So they invited me to the park, and he's like, just swing big, just to finish that story. And I just swung big, and I hit the guy in the fencing mask, and just I didn't know what I was doing, but I hit him, and he dropped, and it was crazy. That was my first experience, and then I ended up doing a bunch of more fights.
Right.
And what's crazy about it is I didn't realize I was getting hit, but I had all these bruises all over my body, like deep, crazy bruises. Yeah, like all my arms, my legs, and you're full of adrenaline and all that.
But can you imagine if it was a sharpened blade?
Oh yeah,
right.
Done. Yeah.
That's what people don't understand. I mean, I trained in stick and knife fighting for many years growing up, and I've been cut, I've been smacked on the head. Yeah, you don't feel stuff, but it just takes one. Like how you get hit right on the button.
Yeah,
it only takes one, right? Why would you risk that?
Well, one of our longtime Muay Thai coaches, Brian, man, he was in Pasadena, and they went out to a nightclub, and he wasn't married. His girlfriend, who's now his wife. He was with some friends, and that friend looked at somebody else, and then whatever, he's like, let's get out of here, or just went to the other side of the club. And then later that evening, they were walking in the parking garage, and they saw each other, and they came, and the guy punched his girlfriend.
The guy?
A guy, yeah.
Whoa.
And like all he saw was her hair go up, boom.
Oh crap!
And so our Muay Thai coach, Brian, he just went red. Right away, he head kicked the guy, dropped him, and then just started throwing elbows. And then somebody called the police. Whatever, the police came, and he was just like beating him down from the mount. But when they arrested him and they put him in the car, he felt like he had to go to the bathroom. The guy stabbed him in his stomach.
Ooh.
And he had a belt on.
Stab.
One stab, right? One stab.
Right.
It changed his life.
Right.
He was, it took him like years and years to just even get back to the, maybe 80%, right, of his capacity. But because he had a belt on, it like slowed the thing, and it went a little bit to the side, I think, because of it.
No organ damage.
It went into his intestines. They had to open him up and, patch it up or whatever they had to do. It was like, super weak for like years after that.
What happened to the guy?
He went to jail, and, there's a whole process, right? Like he was a young kid, just, it's like, for what,
Exactly.
Yeah, for
right?
what?
You can never tell, man.
But if you do martial arts, all these guys, they have nothing to prove. We prove it every day, right? On the mats.
Absolutely.
Training.
Right. I mean, I tell people, like, look, I take shooting lessons. My shooting coach, he's a retired Israeli paratrooper, and he also went to Israeli Secret Service school. So I do a lot of CQB, close quarter battle simulations. And it's not easy, man. just because you have a gun doesn't mean
Right.
you're gonna hit something.
Right.
I mean,
You got to practice.
I've been to ranges and seeing people go crazy shooting at a target, human-sized target, at close range. Not a single bullet scratched the target. Imagine at like 10, 15 feet.
Yeah.
It's not easy shooting someone.
And somebody can grab you in that time, right?
Right.
If they're that close.
But if you train for it, and if you are aware of what you're capable of doing, it increases your chances of survival.
Right.
And that's why I tell people that train, say, listen, just because you're a fighter, just because you're a seasoned competitor, doesn't make you invincible. It just makes you a bigger target. The problem here is the choices that you make, whether you engage or diffuse. It's life and death. Like what just happened to your Muay Thai coach. If you look back, how could you have addressed the scenario? Right?
They pulled their friend away. It was just like sometimes you don't have a choice, right?
Exactly.
That wasn't a choice. You know, they pulled their friend away. But you have a friend that acts stupid, and then you have to back him up.
That's the problem.
So it's like, I remember like Hein Gracie, like if you hung out with him, like you're just, something was gonna happen. Right. So just, I'm just saying, I'm dropping Hein Gracie's name, but just overall, like going out with people that they're gonna do stupid things.
Ask Waleed that.
You're friends with Waleed?
Oh, he's one of my close friends.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I'd love to hear stories from him.
When he used to live in Marina Del Rey back in the day, he would drive on Saturdays to New Breed to come train with me and the guys, and we have a really good relationship, and I was always made fun of him. Oh, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do, and the guy's a pit bull. The guy's tough as hell.
Yeah,
and he will tune you out. And then once he gets his way, you're toast. And I've seen it. My students were like, "Oh my god, I thought he was gonna kill you." I said, "No, I've known the guy so many years. That's why I tease him." But I really enjoyed training with him. He was a lot of fun.
Tell me some Waleed stories, some good Waleed stories.
Wow. Yeah, there are some stories I can't tell. But one thing he did tell me is that, look, Ouano, you my brother. I die for you. That basically says a lot about the guy. What he meant was, you're my friend, you're my brother. If you go to battle, I will die for you. There is no other story that can make it better than that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at all his battles under the Carlson Gracie banner. You've seen it.
I mean, do you remember the Royce Gracie?
Oh, of
match,
course.
I was living in Brazil at the time, and
I saw that video at his house. So
yeah, that kind of blew up his name like worldwide because he was a Carlson Gracie student, and then the Horn Gracie and that that part they're saying like sports jiu-jitsu doesn't work, right? And then Carlson was like, Billy was like, yeah, let's fight, let's go, let's do a jiu-jitsu match, and they had a big event on the beach.
Yeah, it was a lot of people, man.
Yeah, it was a
like
big
IBJJF
arena.
championship.
It was a big arena. It was like Long Beach, the pyramid, but outdoors they built the stands right on the beach.
I remember the huge crowd.
And then he ended up choking out Royce with the clock choke, right? Choke on unconscious.
I've been to a seminar where he taught that, and I was just like,
it's crazy though because he's probably just a Gracie student, and then like choking out like Royce, like just like it's good for Waleed, but like for like all of us as Gracie students, we're just like, it's a bummer.
Well, every family has they all have their wins and their losses.
Yeah, no, it's all we're all interconnected, and he does jiu-jitsu because of Carlson Gracie and the Gracie family,
right?
and the whole thing. We're all interconnected.
He did it to fight.
Yeah. And and he put it on the line, and
Oh yeah.
and respect to to all the guys that put it on the line. But I just remember that moment. It was like
And he did it multiple times. He just didn't do it once or twice. He did it multiple times.
yeah.
Japan, Brazil, the United States.
Yeah. He represented all over the
he
all over the world.
Yeah, he was not afraid. Yeah, he was not afraid. Yeah, I tell a story about Waleed, and I tell people, I said, listen, Waleed is in a different level of individual compared to the average guys out there.
Yeah.
Think of like Waleed is like if you chopped off his leg and he has 3 limbs, he will continue to use those 3 limbs to fight. And you cut the other limb off, he will use whatever limb is available to fight.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different level of mentality. Like it's just like the will to fight.
Yeah.
Some people's like, oh my God, I got wounded. No, unless you kill him, he will continue to fight.
He got into promoting, right? Does the jungle fight? Is he still doing it?
He's still doing jungle fight. Yeah.
I went down there one time. I cornered one of my friends in jungle fight when he fought in Rio. He was in Rio.
I don't know if is he the matchmaker or something, but he's been involved.
I thought he was the promoter. I thought he was the main promoter.
Yeah, I think it started with Inoki, I believe.
And he was connected, right?
I think Inoki
it was in
helped.
Manaus in the Amazon,
Right.
and then they took it all over. I think Brazil.
Right. So he's doing really well for himself. I follow him, and he always posts these videos of him talking, and he's a flashy guy. I like him. He's really cool. But he remembers his friends.
That's cool.
That's one thing I like about the guy. He was if he was your friend, he'd tell you that.
Yeah.
And he won't fake it.
Yeah. Man, going back, for you, how did you get into jiu-jitsu?
My brother-in-law at that time was training under Hoist. This was before the UFC happened.
You were living where?
I was already here
In California.
Yeah,
so you came from the Philippines?
No,
You
I've been in the United States since '82. So
Okay.
I grew up. I've been here most of my life.
Okay.
So
You guys came to California?
No, I was in Florida. I lived all over. I lived in Florida. I lived in Illinois.
Okay.
I lived in Pennsylvania. I lived in New Jersey.
Okay.
I lived in Japan. I was in New Zealand for a few months. I traveled around for a couple years before I ended up in California.
Okay.
But I've
There's
had
one
family.
thing you would recommend for somebody new or newer that's begun jiu-jitsu. What would it be for them to be successful, to make this a lifestyle, to make jiu-jitsu part of their life forever? Because you've been in the game for how many years now?
30 years this year.
30 years. So 30 years.
The thing that I like to tell individuals that are new in the sport is this: do your due diligence, find a school, and find a teacher that fits your personality, because that is the beginning of you loving what you do. If it helps to talk. Really, communication is key. Most people can tell if the gym is fit for them or not. And if it's not, then you move on. Don't be tempted in staying for whatever reason if you're not happy. Find a place where you're comfortable. Find a place where you're safe. Find a place where if you don't like the pressure, no one will pressure you. Right? If you like the pressure because you're a competitor, find a place that will pressure you, that will put you in a spot to make you think when there's a lot of stress.
Yeah, bring out the best in you.
But that's basically what it is with combat sport. Is it's easy to say, oh, Alberto, we're just gonna do competition style. It's not really life and death, but it's like submission only, right? It's different when there are knives involved. There are guns involved. It changes the way you look at things, right? People always say, "Oh, I'm a black belt. I'm so many degrees. I've won championships." And then Guy goes, I'm good with a knife. That's all I know. The bottom line is find a school that you feel comfortable. Find a coach that will help guide you. Have fun. Before you know it, it becomes a lifestyle.
That's it.
I mean, you basically, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?
That's it.
Because you want to be tough? Well, look, yeah, you can be tough. Your coach may be able to train you to be tough within a 5-year period. How many black belts do you know that wanted to be the best they can? They get to the level where you could get them and they decide, I've drained my coach. I have drained my coach. I got to go find something else. That's happened to you. It's happened to me. Happens to everybody.